Hey, good morning, Choice Residential. Hope your day's off to a great start. Today, I want to talk about square footage and the square footage that is listed in the county tax records. Now, hopefully, most of you realize that the square footage listed in the county tax record is often not correct. However, often it is in the right ballpark. So, the square footage listed there probably most often comes from the builder plans that were submitted to the county along with the original permit. However, sometimes the actual final product that gets built is slightly different from what was submitted with that permit. Even in some cases, maybe what were originally going to be unfinished spaces become finished, and they may have gotten permitted along with the final inspections and that CO. However, that change may not have been added to the square footage that got reported to the tax authority. So that could be a reason why it's off, even if the square footage was in fact all permitted originally. But sometimes the square footage is very different from what's in the tax record after you have it measured. And when that happens, you just need to recognize not that one thing is right or wrong or that it means any specific thing. It just means you need to start looking into it more. It's a little red flag there that needs to trigger more questions and more investigation on your part. So, are there any homes in the room, any spaces in the room that could have potentially been finished after the original construction? That might be why the square footage you're measuring is more or higher than the square footage in the tax records. What you don't want to do is just brush it off and say, oh, well, the tax record's usually wrong. That's why it's off by 200 square feet. Well, again, is there a bonus room somewhere or a third floor or a basement space or some other space maybe that could have been finished later? We just don't know the answer to that. And as real estate agents, we sometimes can't actually get to the 100% correct answer. But what our obligation is to disclose anything that could be off. So whenever there's a discrepancy between the square footage that you have measured for a listing and what is reflected in the tax record, now keep in mind, I'm talking about a significant difference. Yes, that is subjective, but if it's off by 25 square feet, that's just a rounding error in most cases. But if it's off by 225 square feet, or in some cases, even if it's off by 100 square feet, that might start to be cause to just ask questions. And if you can determine that there is anything that could have been finished later without a permit, then you want to make sure you're just simply disclosing that. Now, one quick pro tip here, do not call the county and tell them that the square footage is off. It's not really your place to do that. You're trying to figure out why it might be off, but you don't necessarily want to alert the tax authority that a home that you don't own may actually be larger than what is reporting to the county. That obviously can have an impact on the tax assessment for that property. So you want to have that conversation with your seller before actually talking to anyone at the county. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully this is helpful. Again, the main point here is when you see a discrepancy, let that be a trigger for you to start asking more questions, turn your brain on, start figuring out why there might be a discrepancy there. But if it's just a nominal discrepancy, that's okay. That is extremely common to have that kind of difference. So as always, if you have questions, thoughts, or experiences you want to share, please put them in the comments below so that we can all learn from the discussion. And as always, until next time, take care.